Hello, I'm Miranda Kahn.
And I'm John Bachman. Coming up today on Newsmax Now.
These five are a little different than the rest. Coming up, more on this special invitation from one of the biggest names and political contributions.
We'll make an announcement of what our intentions are latter part of June, the latter part of May. The 1st of June would be the timetable.
There you have it, a Newsmax exclusive. J.D. Hayworth joins us for an in-depth look at his exclusive interview with Rick Perry. Is there room in the GOP field for one more man from Texas? And under fire, a new investigation by police in D.C. over this picture with 2 congressmen and 1 AR-15 rifle.
It's noon on the East Coast, but no matter where you are, it's time for Newsmax Now. Hello again, I'm Miranda Kahn.
And we welcome you in here to Newsmax Now. We'll start on the campaign trail, and a lot of money at stake for these GOP candidates. The billionaire Koch brothers may be putting their weight behind several GOP candidates in the presidential race. Charles Koch telling the USA Today that he and his brother have invited 5 contenders that they think are on the right track and have a good chance of getting elected. Their picks are Scott Walker, Jeb Bush, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, and Marco Rubio. But Koch says right now they are not supporting any one specific candidate. But several reports say that David Koch privately told people that Walker should be the next president. Speaking to the Des Moines Register, Walker says he's glad but a little surprised, and right now he's focused on getting the support of regular Iowa voters.
The Obama administration says a job in Yemen is not over yet. As we speak, an American aircraft carrier is making its way to the waters off of Yemen. Its official mission is to keep trade routes open through the area, but some reports suggest otherwise. They say the warships are there to stop Iranian boats from supplying weapons to Houthi rebels. Here's what Press Secretary Josh Earnest has to say about the matter.
We continue to have concerns about Iran's support for the Houthis, including supplying them with military equipment and even arms.
This latest revelation now adding more fuel to a proposed deal with Iran. Florida Senator and presidential candidate Marco Rubio just joined Illinois Senator Mark Kirk. They want Iran to release several Americans being held there. That includes a Washington Post reporter who was officially charged with espionage this week in Iran. And
today, French officials say they have thwarted a terror attack that was planned for French churches. A 24-year-old computer science student who had assembled an arsenal of heavy weapons was arrested Sunday in Paris. This came after he shooting himself, apparently by accident. The same student is also accused of murdering a woman who was visiting Paris. And check out this dramatic rescue in Washington, D.C. Watch this man in a motorized wheelchair. This is at a subway stop yesterday afternoon, not far from the White House. For some reason, he drives right off the edge and onto the tracks. But look at this. It did not take long for a couple of commuters to jump onto those tracks and lift the man and his wheelchair back up onto the platform. He survived. He did have to go to the hospital with just a few cuts on his face, but it could have been much worse. So they're restoring a little faith in
something
humanity.
good happened in Washington, D.C.
Of course,
it was not far from the White House, but it did not involve anybody in Congress. But our conversation is going to involve a guy who would like to be in the White House and one guy who worked well in Congress not too long ago. J.D., great to have you with us.
It is good to be here with you once again on Newsmax Now.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you. Let's talk about your interview yesterday with former Texas Governor Rick Perry.
Well, Rick Perry is rested, and he is ready. He is going to get in this presidential race. I don't believe there's any doubt about that, just because of legal situations. He's waiting to make that formal announcement. But in listening to him during the course of the interview, it is very obvious he has the theme set. And his one theme is, look, I've been a successful governor. I brought jobs to Texas. I was governor there for 14 years. And being a chief executive of a large state prepares you to become chief executive of the United States. And that's going to be the argument he presents.
And so is the race big enough for 2 Texans?
Well, Texas is a mighty big place. And we heard Governor Perry talk about Ted Cruz, very diplomatic, talked about how intelligent the senator is, what an outstanding United States senator he is, and a good friend.
Well, let's listen to what he actually had to say about that.
He is an incredibly bright, capable United States senator. I'm proud to call him my friend. I think anybody that gets in this race at the level of which we're seeing will make all of the competitors better. Ted will certainly do that, and I know I look forward to being on the stage with him as we discuss the issues that are very important for America. I can promise you we'll be both respectful, civil, and with a real look to the future for this country.
Now,
And Governor, as you're talking, it sounds like it's all but certain. When will you officially enter the race?
Well, we'll make an announcement of what our intentions are latter part of June, the latter part of May. The 1st of June would be the timetable.
Governor, in hearing from some of my conservative friends, they take a look back at your political resume and they say, wait a minute, this guy was a Democrat until, well, fairly recently in life, or at least by some people's standards. What, you supported Al Gore as a Democrat in 1988? How did you make the transition from Democrat to Republican?
Well, not unlike Ronald Reagan and Phil Gramm and Ken Hance and a host of other rather conservative Democrats that took the step across the line. So I think I'm in pretty good company there with Ronald Reagan and Phil Gramm, as well as Ken Hance and a lot of folks in our part of the country who grew up in the Democrat Party. They were all conservatives, and Ronald Reagan made it okay for conservative Democrats to step across that line. In the late 80s is when I did that, and I made both political parties happy on the day that I announced that I was joining the Republican Party.
At least he has a sense of humor about it.
Well, you could say it's Rick Reagan Perry. I mean, he's
Yeah.
grabbing hold of the Reagan legacy, as every Republican will try to do, with the possible exception of former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, who has nice things to say, but he says it's time to move on.
well, as a student of Southern politics, it reminds me of a joke. What do you call a yellow dog Democrat in 2015?
A Republican.
There you go.
There we go.
So there are a lot of Democrats out there who are now Republicans. Rick Perry,
Or
in
the
good
other
company
way,
there.
because Hillary Clinton was a
That's
Republican.
right. She was a
and she went the
Goldwater
other
girl
way.
back
Right.
in 1964 before she was radicalized, but we'll
It happens.
talk about that. It does
It happens on college campuses. We
Yes.
do want to also talk about the Coke 5 out there, JD, and the talking points that you see circulating on headlines that there are 5 candidates who are going to, quote unquote, audition for a chance to get the Coke backing. What do you think about that type of storyline?
Well, I think the Koch brothers have decided to make lemonade out of the lemons that were offered up by the left. They've become much more prominent about this, and I guess the candidates, look, you want to get as much support as you can have, and so you've got Scott Walker and Jeb Bush and Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and Marco Rubio. They'll be happy to audition. In a sense, you're auditioning every day for all of the voters. Of course, the left will cast this as some sort of horrible situation, conveniently forgetting all the billionaires like George Soros who
Yeah,
are
right.
unblinkingly on the side of the left.
The same thing is happening on the left, too. I mean, we have Hillary Clinton, who is right now the only one running, though, right? But there's other people who are working behind the scenes trying to, amass a certain amount of donors in their corner.
Well, a lot of people are saying they're not going to run against Hillary because they're too intimidated by how much money the Clintons have. Money you've run.
Listen, I got to tell you,
imperative is it?
Not to revisit most recent races, but a good bit of presidential money was used against me in a Senate race. Look, money, you have to have it. You have to have a combination of grassroots and greenbacks. Money will always be involved in politics, and the notion is Hillary doesn't only want to send a message to other Democrats, she wants to send a message to Republicans. Watch me raise over $2 billion. Watch that space,
Now,
we'll see if it happens.
We heard over the weekend Marco Rubio making a joke about that money and the crowd laughing in New Hampshire, the GOP crowd. But do you think they'll really be laughing? I mean, that's a lot of money that's going to have to be raised this time around.
Well, I will
It's
tell
daunting.
you, look, you can't separate it. You have to raise money. It will probably be $1 billion campaign just because of the cost of media and everything else that goes on. But the key thing is to make sure you have enough money to get your message out. And there's something else that's helped to level the playing field, so to speak, and that is the electronic internet revolution in terms of getting a hold of people.
And we talk about a lot of money being spent, but of course, folks, in this country, we still spend more money on potato chips and window treatments than we do on our election cycle. So it's okay.
Kind of sad.
It's
Well,
okay.
and then again, maybe it's just an accurate reflection of priorities
Exactly.
on the part of the American people.
Exactly.
Potato chips and window coverings.
It is very sad to think about that. JD, thanks so much for joining us on Newsmax Now. Always good to get your insight. Coming up on Newsmax Now, can gay marriage cause an uptick in abortions? Find out next.